Thank you for staying with us on The Pulse. Now, time for the sport. I'm Gary L. Smith. Today, 17 years ago, was an inauspicious event for Ghanaian football and indeed for African soccer. 127 people died at the Accra Sports Stadium, and every year since, there's been a commemoration. And in light of various things that have happened between then and now, there's always the opportunity to ask what we are doing. But today, just to bring you up to speed on the commemorative events in the country, let's go to myjoyonline.com and check out what is there. Isaac Esiama says that lessons have been learned after 47 years, and the story says that exactly 17 years ago today, 127 soccer fans died when Hearts played Kotoko in the Ghana Premier League match. It happened in 2001. The trouble had been anticipated before the game. Extra security measures had been taken. Hearts scored 2 late goals against Kotoko to make it 2-1, which led to some disgruntled Kotoko fans throwing plastic seats and bottles onto the pitch. So we know that story. Let's go down and see Isaac Esiama's quotation. Yes, he said, he told the media that the country has learned useful lessons from the incident, which has manifested in structural considerations and crowd control strategies at the venue. He says that the stadium wasn't like this before. There were 1 or 2 exits at the time. Now there are more. When there's a problem, fans can easily get away. Evacuation is easier. We've improved on the stadium year after year. Although there has been some neglect, we are putting it back in shape. Crowd comportment is also now better. As people who visit the stadium, we will discuss that very briefly. Hans is in the studio with me as well. Every year we discuss it, so let's change tack a bit. Yeah. In the year under review, a couple of weeks ago, we've seen beatings of a referee as well. Exactly. So clearly we have not learned lessons from that. We've seen crowd violence in the last couple of months at different Ghana Premier League venues. Absolutely. Yes. For where media is concerned, there's still a lot of sensationalism going on that drives fans to be angry when they go to the stadia and so on and so forth. Do you believe the minister when he says we've learned lessons? Absolutely not. I think that it's business as usual. A committee was set up. They came up with findings and recommendations. We've moved on. But are we doing anything differently? I think that the key things haven't really changed, apart from the fact that Hearts and Kotoko are not playing, under floodlights, on a weekday anymore. That probably is as far as it goes in terms of implementing the recommendations that were put out. But I don't really see any lessons that have been there. We are still seeing violence at our various match venues. Recently, a referee was beaten at the Elmina, at the Indom, sports stadium at the Elmina. And so it becomes very difficult to accept or admit what a minister is saying. I don't think that we've learned lessons. If at all, we haven't really learned the key lessons from May 9, 2001. So the minister spoke about having crowd control measures and having more exits at the Accra Sports Stadium. But it's important to note that since 2001, the major facelift for the various stadia came in the form of the 4 big ones: Accra, Kumasi, the one in the Western region, the one in the Northern Regional Capital of Tamale. But across the country, in the other smaller venues, Doma, Ashgood, Linkley, Pando Heart of Lions, you can name all manner of venues. So the question really then becomes that within the recommendations that were put out, were there structural specifications as to how we are going to build football match venues around the country? Did the Indon Sports Stadium, for instance, conform to those specifications that were in the recommendations, or people are just waking up and putting up football facilities across the country? Right. So just to continue this discussion, it's not just us speaking about it, but a towering figure when it comes to the May 9 anniversary commemorations is Herbert Mensah. He's been a perennial, really, person that you will see on a day like this. He's spoken about the need to ensure that this never happens again.
I believe that the FA and the structures around the FA have taken it more seriously. So we are unlikely to get such a disaster again. Football is an emotive sport. We see it all over. We saw it Liverpool, Roma. We've seen it in other things where there's violence off the field, there's violence around. It seems to be the nature of the football supporters. We don't have that in rugby, which is funny. Huh? So I think they have. Have they done enough? They probably can never ever do enough, but now they are there to be judged. Every time that things go wrong, we know they're there to be judged. It happens with all sports administrators around the world. All I can say is that for those of us who experienced it, lived it, and have lived with families since, you really don't want it to ever happen again.
So the refrain has been never again. However, the other part that we can say is that because it's a human institution, sports in general can never be infallible. So on the occasion that there is a mistake or there's an error, did the authorities make sure that the punishments go hand in hand? Are they as severe just to deter others, Hans?
No. I mean, we've seen several disciplinary cases at the Ghana Football Association where the FA's disciplinary committee has failed to crack the whip. We are still waiting for a ruling on what happened recently at Elmina, where a referee was assaulted. Again, key people who are supposed to make important statement that this sort of attitude or these occurrences will not be tolerated, surprisingly, seem to be in the middle, not really making the statement they need to make. Case in point, Dr. Papa Kwesi Endom, if you remember the statement he put out on his Facebook page after this particular incident. I mean, no condemnations whatsoever of the incident. Actually,
a defense.
Recounted his own version of event to the effect that the referee tripped and fell on a stone, on the pitch at the Indom Sports Stadium, which for me was unacceptable. For a figure like him, the first thing he should have done was to have condemned what happened there, and without coming out with a defense for his club, Elmina Sharks. And so key people have failed to make crucial statement to the effect that we will not tolerate this.
Right. So there have been lots of opinions about what May 9 means now. People feel that it's become yet another date we look at in Ghana as well. However, in 3 years, we'll have the 20th, and it will be a crying shame, really, if it will be business as usual as it was in 2001. So going forward, I mean, we've spoken about the lack of this, the lack of that. From the perspective of those watching, I mean, if they go to the stadia, what is their role?
I think that we always must remember what happened on that fateful day. We owe it to the families of the victims to ensure that this doesn't happen again. I think that as a counteract, they say that the best lessons or lessons learned in blood are never forgotten. And so let's not forget what happened there. 127 people is the worst on the African continent. Let's not forget, when we go to match venues, let's keep it in mind and let it guide our thoughts and crucially our actions.
Thank you, Hans, for that. And I'm sure that the conversation on this will keep on going on and on and on. Meanwhile, the children and those who suffered have been receiving various degrees of assistance or various levels of assistance from various people, and we continue to be thankful for that. That's the sport for now. I'll be back at 8:30 to bring you the latest trending international and local stories. I'm Gary Alsmith.